Solving quadratic equations word problem involving distance, time, and speed. Now there are a couple of different ways that we can solve a quadratic equation. So let us recall a little bit. We can use either factorization for quadratic equation. To solve a quadratic equation, trial and error, or common factors, or we can use the quadratic formula. Do you still remember what is the formula to solve quadratic equations? X will be equals to negative b plus minus square root b square minus 4ac over 2a. So we can either use the factorization method or the formula method to solve the quadratic word problems. Now let's take a look at the questions that we have here in this case. In this question, the distance from town P to Q was 160 kilometers. During a journey from town P to Q, a man drove at an average speed of X kilometer per hour. Find the time taken in hours in this case. So I have given the distance and the speed. How do I find the time? Time equals to distance divided by speed. So notice about the units. The distance in this case is kilometer. The average speed in this case is kilometer per hour. So for our case, we'll get a total of time to be in hours. So this one will be 160 over x hours. Okay, this is the time from P to Q. Due to a traffic accident, his return journey from Q to P was affected. The speed was reduced by... What do you mean by reduced? Reduced from which speed? What is his original speed? Oh, the original speed is x. Now we're going to reduce it by 25, so it will become x minus 25. Write down an expression for time taken for the return journey. So time taken to travel from Q to P would now be take the same distance divided by the new speed, x over 25. And again, distance is in kilometers, speed is in kilometers per hour, so the unit for the time will be hours. So now let's keep these two information and we're going to use it to answer the next few part of the question. Next one, given that the difference in time for the two journey was 4 hours, how do you find the difference in time? Now we have two different timing. Time from P to Q, and that was 160 over x. The second timing was time from Q to P, and that was 160 over x minus 25. Okay, the first timing initially was the regular speed, so this timing is actually, the car is actually moving faster. That means the time will be shorter time. Then when on the return journey due to accident, the speed travel was slower, so that means the time taken will be longer. Now they tell me that the difference is 4 hours. How do we get difference? We take the larger minus the smaller one. So in this case, which one should we take to subtract which one? So the longer timing will be 160 over x minus 25. Subtract the shorter timing, 160 over x, and that gives us a total of 4 hours. So now we have an equation to start off with. You notice that in our question here, the equation has no denominator. So what do we need to do? We have two different fractions down here. Is it possible to combine them into one single fraction? Yes. What's the denominator? I'll need a x minus 25, and I also need the x. And what do I need to multiply to this portion over here, this fraction? I need to multiply with x. Then what about the next one? X minus 25. Okay, let's try to work this out. We will have 160x subtract, be careful of the subtraction sign, 160 multiplied to x minus 25 to be equals to 4. Take note that is a negative and a negative down here, so when we expand, please be very careful. I will get 160x subtract 160x, and then negative 160 times negative 25. Negative 160 times negative 25, that gives me positive 4,000. Okay, so since we're going to solve the quadratic equation, we will need to simplify, expand the denominator as well. We'll get x squared minus 25x. Okay, let's simplify this equation. I'll get and cross multiply over. Okay, I can multiply my denominator over and my denominator over to numerator. So 160x minus 160x, we are left with 4,000. And 4 is multiplied to the whole of x squared minus 25x. Let us expand and simplify. I'll get 4,000 to be equals to 4x squared minus 100x. Now equation wants us to get something equals to 0. So we shall equate everything to 0. So I get 4x squared minus 100x minus 4,000. Please take note of the sign. And since they only want x squared, they do not want a 4x squared, and this side over here is 0, we can divide everything by the number 4. And finally, we will be able to get our equation, x squared minus 25x minus 1,000 to be equals to 0. Shown. Up next, we are going to use this equation and solve the equation. Now in this part D, they say solve the equation x squared minus 25x minus 1000 is equals to 0, given your answers correct to 2 decimal places. So now let's see if we do not know how to get the answer for part C. Can we still solve this part of the question? Yes, we can. So without further ado, we are going to have our equation. You have two choices. You can either try to do factorization or you can try to use the formula. So since in this case they mentioned something about decimal place, I'm going to use the formula directly. So what is our value for A, B, and C? A will be the number 1. B is negative 25. Don't forget the sign. And C will be negative 1,000. Using our formula, x is equals to negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4a and c over 2a. Let's plug in the values accordingly. B will be negative 25. B squared minus 4a and c over 2a. Next, we are going to use our calculator for the answers. Okay, and we will be able to get one answer to be 46.504. Find SF first before I round off to 2 dp. 46.50 in this case. Or the second answer is negative 21.504 and round off to negative 21.50. Okay, do not reject any answers yet because they ask us only to solve the question, we didn't use the numbers yet. But for part E, question asks us to hence. That means out of these two answers, I will need to choose one of the possible answers. Now, what can x be? What is x? X is actually the speed. Can we have a negative speed? So in this case, we are not going to use negative 21.50. We are going to use our x value to be 46.504. So using x to be 46. We should not use the two decimal places. We want accuracy, so we should use the 5 sig figs answer. So using x to be equals to 46.504, they ask us to find the time taken, correct the nearest minute for the return journey. Time for the return journey is given as distance divided by the new speed, 46.504, subtract 25. Okay, and that gives us the answer 7.44 hours. But they want us to correct to the nearest minute. We can use the following button on your calculator. This one there's a time button here, or some of yours may look like something like that. Okay, with a time button. You can use that to change your answers directly to hours and the nearest minute. So this will be 7 hours. And if you were to look at this portion, this is actually 0.44 hour. 1 hour has 60 minutes. So I will be able to convert it and get the answer 26 minutes. So this answer will be 7 hours 26 minutes. That's all for this part. Let's take a quick water break and we'll come back for the next two types of quadratic equations with word problems. See ya!